So when you are done analyzing, what is the main root cause we have this problem?
Which problem? I think we need to identify the problem first.
Overall, what is the...
Like, why are we saying it's a 3? What's the problem that's keeping it from...
For each one?
Right. Which one of them we looked at it, but what overall could it be a root cause?
Okay, so like for information and analysis, what can be a root cause for not making all of them up 1 from where we are?
Well, but I mean, the root cause is different for each one.
But you want an overall...
You can share individuals, whatever you think, then it's fine.
I think...
Okay. Are we ready?
Okay, for me, I selected 4 for approach. I selected 4 because I feel that we are on a path that's leading us to be successful, and we don't. I feel that we're on a path that's leading us to be successful. Every gap is not closed, but we are aiming that way. So I think that the system we have in place is working for us because our ratings are going up, and we continue to move forward. So I rated a 4 for overall.
Is that thing running?
For information and analysis, I picked 4 for the approach because it says there's a systematic reliance on hard data, and then it also put including data for subgroups. I know that that's something that we focus on in the campus improvement plan, and also what we focus on when we're looking at the CUA data and the different data that we get back. So it's all in one system, and it's all able to be used fluidly.
I went to a 3, mainly because of that last part. Changes are based on the study of data to meet the needs of students and teachers. I see that kind of that we haven't changed much. We seem to be kind of doing the same things over and over. So we see the data. The data's kind of been the same. If you look at our hotspots, they've been the same hotspots. And so we really haven't been changing much. To go on, yes, we look at data and everything like that. We take apart the data. We can always say the hotspots. But like I said, the hotspots have been the same since Mr. B's been doing it for now 3-4 years. And they're the exact same one. Life cycles.
Math is vertically aligned.
Yeah, so it's the exact same ones. And I would say that if we have that reliance on that hard data and we're actually using that data, that there should have been some progress in those to where it shouldn't be like maybe 1 year, it's not a hotspot. But if it's a hotspot continuously, that means that, we can say that the lower grades aren't supporting to go, but also the upper grades aren't changing the way that they're teaching. Because if this is coming in and it's been a hotspot for years and everything like that, and this is the way I've always been teaching it, I might need to change the way that I'm teaching to try to fix that hotspot. Same thing for like the lower grades. If they're seeing that going into 4th grade, they still don't know this, well, maybe I need to change what I'm doing in 3rd grade, or I needed to change what I'm doing in 2nd grade, or so on. So if it's constantly, just like we've seen right now, our science scores have been low. Consistently, we have not been, above a 70% in years. Why is that? Is it, and if we go and look at, have we been using the science, it has every teacher and every grade level been using that science lab before it was shut down religiously? And I'll say no, because just about constantly when I'd be walking by, it'd be empty. So that's why I put it down at a 3, was that I don't think that the changes are based. I think some of the changes that we're seeing is somewhat by luck, somewhat by changing of like the test, that it might just be the way that the question's worded that they now understand. But if a hotspot's still a hotspot, I don't see the change.
I agree with everything Paul said. I'm still kind of figuring out what we're doing here, but I do want to go straight to outcome. I think we have a plan in order. We do have an effective plan. We think we struggle as a camp is having that plan aligned. We have the framework in place, but as far as teachers, I don't want to say buy-in, but having background knowledge on the plan, and really knowing what our goals are. are still we're still struggling with that a little bit. And while we're struggling with that piece, I think the buy-in piece or the implementation piece also struggles along with it. So I think we could do a better job with clarity. And part of the admin team, I'm fully aware of that. Systematically, what we do is we present that at the beginning of the year, and then following that, we get with the SBDM committee and kind of clear that all up. I know that we put initiatives in place, but sometimes I don't. I think we miss the connection piece. Like, why are we doing this? And teachers tend to struggle when they don't understand why they're doing something. It becomes a checkbox thing instead of a compliance issue. They don't understand the necessity of it all. So I mean, the goal is in place, but the follow through piece and the purpose of the goal, we still struggle with. And even with the goals, we chunk them out periodically, so they're pushed down from the district, and from the district we get them, and so we have to pick and choose what's right. So sometimes it's a lot of information that we get, and we have to train. We have a limited amount of time to train, so we have to train effectively, and we try to get it all done in 2 weeks, and then we have PLCs throughout that are focused on the goal. So growth is usually kind of slower than it needs to be, or could be, just because we have to focus on something different all the time. Now we do have, I think the new coaching walkthroughs are going to help a whole lot. That's one of the district initiatives that will allow us to follow through. And they're directly related to the GRR piece, which is something we're laying our hat on. So I think that's very important that we do have coaching. I think I was listening to a podcast the other day, and 98% of the schools in the United States do not have an active coaching piece to it. So what that means is that only 2% of the schools are getting effective feedback. So I think it's important for us to give effective feedback. Also, I think that goes along with the purpose. We have to front load the rubrics, give them to them, tell them why we're doing this, and it's to improve. But I do think, that being said, we're doing the best we can. I think the initiatives we have in place, the growth mindset, the collective efficacy, those two things are two things that are very important. Now that's a matter of implementation, and that's an ongoing process as you guys have seen. And I think everybody's right. Paul's right about the hot spots. But I mean, that being said, I think that the same hot spots probably, Paul, that we have are the same hot spots that district has. And I think if we even if it would be digress from that and go into the state level, it's the same hot spots at state level. So I don't know if that's a systemic problem, it's an assessment problem, or what it is. But I'm telling you, if you look at them, it's probably pretty much aligned with what the states haven't struggled with. So I mean, that's something that we should look at collectively, and we could do a better job of vertically aligning with all the hot spots.
Well, I think going back to and going where you said with the root causes, I think one of the things that we go is, if you look at that, we have some schools in the district, that score 90%,
Sure.
99%. We have schools in the state. So going back to, I think we look at the hot spots, but we don't necessarily look at the root causes. We look at vertical alignment, we say, oh, look, it's all the way back here, and we've seen that, but kind of like you said, well, why in this state like you said, if it is a statewide problem for 4.5A, well, why do we think that 4.5A for the entire state? Is it because it's asking about snow and kids here have never seen snow? Is it because it's asking about, weather and erosion, and really we're in the middle of a drought, or we're in kind of a flat area, so they don't actually get to see the movement and everything like that. So is going back to kind of looking at the root cause, not just saying the root cause is that if we look at vertical alignment, that there's been a problem but what's causing that? Is it a misconception? And I think that's also one of the things, you guys say it all the time. Make sure that when you're going through the IFB that you're reading those misconceptions, But how often, even when you and I sat in to get ready for the T-test, make sure that you're thinking about those misconceptions that those kids might have. But how many teachers are actually taking a look at their misconceptions and making sure that they're, number one, teaching to fix them, but also not putting into them, to add into them. one of the Facebook groups that I just saw early this morning was talking about a teacher got points taken off of an observation because the kids were doing a puzzle and they were naming the animals on this puzzle, and they said that the teacher said that a whale was a fish, and so they were like, should the teacher have been lost points for saying that it's a fish, not a mammal? And a lot of the teachers like, no, this isn't a zoology class. This isn't, so they were defending the teacher.
Well, what was the purpose of the puzzle?
And it was just a puzzle. She was just naming the animals on the puzzle. So, again, kind of like you said, but going back to, again, I said, yes, it was a fair thing because you're just creating a misconception for that student. And if,
it's definitely an opportunity to correct something.
Right.
I mean, yeah, if you look at, I wonder how many times she used that puzzle, though.
Yeah, and said,
but it looked at that many times.
Well, and it's like, we had a teacher here for years who really had a problem with explaining what area was and everything. And so when it wasn't Miss Bryant.
No.
But yeah,
No,
we had to continuously with that class go and change because of how it was taught that no, that's not exact. So we had to spend weeks to fix that misconception. So again, looking at the root cause, I think could be beneficial, not just looking at vertical alignment, saying it's all kindergarten, they're setting the foundation and they're messing it up for everybody, but that what's going on in kindergarten, what's going on in first grade, what's going on in second grade, because like you said, if it is a statewide problem, then is it the way we're instructing? Is it that they don't have the background knowledge? Is it that it's, they talk all the time about, is it an ethnic thing, or, because they don't have those background knowledge that they don't understand what the question's asking. So what is leading it to it? So
yeah, it's hard to identify. I mean, but honestly, Ms. Thompson, it all comes back to once this data's all vetted out. I mean, that's going to give us. That's what we do. I mean, we'll have a clear picture, and that'll give us additional information to identify what the root cause is. Because we have a picture, but it's ongoing and growing.
Right.
Every time we get any kind of current data or map data or circle data, informal observations by the teachers. Running records, that just allows us more information on to figure out why this is happening. But the important part, I think, of all, especially with an active RTI piece, is that that we identify as soon as possible. I mean, that's the thing. And I think we do have a good RTI, so we understand what the root causes, but we also have things in place to help support any kind of struggles and to fix any kind of root cause problem, or help support that root cause problem. So I think all kind of driven. It's all data driven. Once we have the data, then because right now we're discussing root causes, but we really don't know what we're discussing root causes for, because we're all just kind of grabbing at the air. Like, okay, this is the root cause of this. I mean, if we were more specific, like what's the root cause for science, and it's always earth science, correct? Erosion. Why are we struggling with earth science?
I was going to say that's one thing is for that's been forever is life cycles. So going back to again the root cause, if you look at life cycles all the way down in pre-K, we start with life cycles. So why going back to, we can go and see that it's a hot spot all the way up, but why is it a hot spot when we start in pre-K? They cover it in kindergarten, they cover it in first, they cover it in second, they cover it in third, they cover it in fourth. So why in fifth grade are we still struggling with life cycles if it's covered here? So is it a question thing that how it's worded on the test, we're not teaching it that way? Is it a specific type of life cycle that, we do butterflies, we do chickens, frogs and everything like that, but if they're talking about a walrus, it might be that it was just out there and they've memorized. It's kind of like the water cycle. They memorize the words, they sing the cycles and everything like that, but do they actually understand why those stages happen? So if we're just going memorization and then you go and throw in this different type, or why is this one happening, I can go and say precipitation, condensation, and evaporation, but do I actually understand what it is? Can I go and take out?
Paul, she's gonna run out of data on her phone. Just want you to know. I mean,
Do you guys
So-
have anything
look,
to add
she's-
on?
add on? No, I don't know. I think I feel like we spoke too much.
Conversation, even
but
for
I want to get there.
Dr.
the two
Duncan's
of us.
looking at this, and he's gonna say, you know what?
Dr. Duncan, you probably already know.
Hi,
I
Doctor.
really
Yeah,
appreciate everybody's
some people are just
input.
long-winded.
The one book said yesterday's solution is today's problem.
Mhm.
So there's no 100% we can fix all these problems and what causes. However,
They're always evolving.
right,
Mhm.
but we do our best in what we can do with this problem, what kind of solution we can improve this area. Because this solution will lead to another problem. So there'll always be a problem, but how we can do the best thing we can provide there. And our ultimate goal is our students. So that is everything we talk about is for our students. I really appreciate you guys' time
No
and
problem. Thank you.
conversation.
Very engaging. Let's
Thank
give Ms.
you.
Thompson a big round of applause.
Yay! Thank you.